Hey guys, what is up? It is Cole, and let's just pretend it hasn't been freaking forever since I did any kind of video for YouTube that wasn't, some sort of live streaming thing like with some of my friends, Sausage Factory, or more recently, the channel that Jay and I started, the movie discussion Pocket Dimension. I wanted to get back to Cole Talks Comics, which, yes, I guess was dead for a while, but we're going to say it's back now. Yeah, so a lot of things have happened. Don't have time to really get into it, and it's not all that interesting anyway, but I'm finally in a real sort of library, what I was always sort of envisioned when I first moved to this building. This is my second apartment in this building, and the first time I kind of tried to make my bedroom the library, which was a mistake because it was just too small, and the back room, both two-bedroom apartments, I would just sort of use to like dump stuff in, and it wasn't a very good room. But this now, the second bedroom is a library, and I'm working on it. Have some nice newer bookcases. You can see the white behind me is from IKEA, and the one across is the same one. Nice to have a big, well-built bookcase, as so many of these other, cheap things you get from Walmart are not sturdy, and I've had shelves collapse and everything because I have a lot of books and graphic novels, and they're very heavy, even though I do try to space them out. So hopefully in the future I'll do a video where we do a little tour of this room. As you can see, it's still a bit of a work in progress with some of the shelves not filled up, and there's several other shelves that are off camera. But just to jump back into things, here's a little graphic novel that I picked up somewhat recently, Supergirl Being Super, this being by Mariko Tamaki and Joelle Jones. Part of the whole the DC Rebirth thing. The first of my graphic novels of that line where, they're usually white with the blue at the bottom. I don't think I have any of the others yet. Okay, I do have a couple. But then again, I don't think it's part of the line, so my Darwin Cook, no, those are older. Okay, but you guys know what I mean. So this is a reimagining of the origin of Supergirl. I guess it's not part of the normal continuity, because I'm fairly confident there is an ongoing Supergirl book that's been going on. I should have checked on that before I did this, but I just really wanted to get a video done. It's been so long, and I just wanted to test out some of my equipment in the room and see how it looks and sounds and everything. So bear with me if this one isn't as professional, but hopefully in the future it will get better. So anyway, yeah, so going a little bit by the skin of my teeth here, but I just wanted to get back into it. So Supergirl Being Super, as far as I know, is a reimagining, and as it even says somewhere on the back here, that it's a really good thing for as like sort of a jumping off point, or a gateway for new readers. And it certainly is that. It's not going to be all bogged down with too much continuity stuff. This is 4 issues long, although it's not that thin, so the issues are fairly big. It seems to be about the length of a lot of 6-issue length trades, and each chapter, the first 3 are fairly, they're just sort of teen drama, and then the 4th gets more comic booky with the stuff about who she is. Now, as a reimagining, I don't like what they do with the origin that much as compared to how I've seen it, but at the same time, it's hard to put too much fault or get too upset about it, given how many times they've sort of rebooted the continuity of Supergirl. Of course, here in the immortal classic, the one that sort of kicked it all off in the pages of Crisis on Infinite Earths back in 1985, the first real continuity sort of reboot thing, where the idea was to get rid of the multiverse and merge everything into a single thing, get rid of Earth 2 and all that. Of course, we all know how that turned out. Didn't last, by Marv Wolfman and George Perez. One of the things they did in this book was kill off several big characters, I guess, to just show how serious it was. I know Barry Allen, the Flash, was actually killed off, and so was Supergirl. And then for the next decade or so, Supergirl did eventually show up again. Oh, the idea, by the way, was also to sort of help streamline Superman's origin. Because originally, Superman was a lone survivor of Krypton, sent from a dying planet as a baby, blah, 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 raised on Earth. But then over time, people kept adding in stuff, and one was, of course, he had a cousin, Kara Zor-El, who was also from Krypton and survived. And then you have the whole bottled city of Kandor. You had the various Phantom Zone criminals like Zod, who were Kryptonians that were in Phantom Zone at the time and stuff. So it seems like, I understand, it's sort of watering down Superman's origin a bit. He's not really the last survivor of the planet anymore. There's a whole bunch of them. And so the idea was to make it so that, once again, he was that. And then all this stuff crept back in through continuity anyway. And without going into too much detail, and also because I don't really know, because this is kind of a blind spot for me, the earlier the earlier 90s DC stuff that wasn't Batman, but I mean, the big one I have is Death of Superman. It's down here somewhere. Oh, let's check this. And, I'll have to fix that later. And, yeah, all I know is that they did have a Supergirl going on there, but I don't know what her deal was, and she was like some sort of shape-shifting alien, and so she didn't always look like a human. She looked a lot different, and it was really weird. There's a part where she tries to fight Doomsday, and Doomsday punches her, and her face goes all splooshy, and she turns into a weird-looking alien. I guess that's, was it Matrix or something? Anyway, and then several years, you know, so it was not a good time for the character. And then, of course, she was brought back in 2004 by Jeff Loeb and Michael Turner here in an arc of the Batman-Superman comic, which I own and love, and I really like this. And this tells about how Kara Zor-El comes to Earth. And it's very, very different from this, and we'll talk a little about the differences here. So, in this one, Superman has obviously been around for a while. He and Batman have established their alliance and friendship. The Justice League is around. So, it's been at least a few years. Then Kara crash lands on Earth. Doesn't really know where she is. Can't speak English or anything like that, of course. She's speaking Kryptonian. Batman manages to subdue her, and then when she meets Superman, they start speaking Kryptonian. And Superman, being the nice stand-up guy that he is, trusts her right away, totally believes her story that it is his cousin, and also by some weird space-timey stuff. She is younger than him, but she shouldn't be, because she actually was already a teenager when she left the dying Krypton. Well, of course, he was a baby, but he got to Earth way sooner, grew up into a guy into like his early 30s, whereas she's only just getting here now, still a teenager, so you have that dynamic going on. And, yeah, it's a really good storyline. I like it a lot. And they made a pretty good animated adaptation of it, too, that you can see, that sticks very closely to it. It's got Darkseid in it. It's a big part of it, taking her and trying to make it turn to his side. The dark side. The Darkseid side. So, yeah, really enjoyable stuff. So, right away, there's a big difference between him and her. He was only born on Krypton, but grew up on Earth, not knowing who he was for a long time. Of course, in the old continuity, he was Superboy, but they got rid of that. So the idea was, you know, what we've seen in more recent tellings of the origin is, you know, he grew up on Earth, in Smallville, small-town America. So his powers he knew about, though he didn't know where he came from. He knew he came from somewhere else, but didn't know where. The Kents helped him keep his secret and stuff, and then, you know, eventually all the stuff would get revealed. He'd find the spaceship stuff and the messages from his own father, Jor-El, and et cetera, until finding out exactly who he is. And he is Superman. He's from Krypton. He's their champion. The symbol on his chest is the symbol of his family. It means hope, et cetera. And while it was quite different from her, she grew up on Krypton. She knew she was Kryptonian. Then the idea was she had to adjust to Earth. But what they're doing here with Supergirl being super is almost just sort of ripping off Superman's storyline, and I don't like it very much. So now we've got, the idea is she's about, I don't know, 7 or 8 or something like that when she's sent away from Krypton. So she crash lands on Earth as a little girl, not a baby, but a little girl, and this, they say, picks up about 8 years afterwards. So they don't even know how old she is, but they're guessing she's, you know, in her, like, mid to late teens, because one of the events that's happening in this book is her 17th birthday, but the birthday they make is just based on the day they found her. So right away, now this origin is smacks just of Superman. She's living in small town America. It's a very similar place to Smallville. This is Midville. Okay, that's imaginative. And yeah, so. And it's sort of the same thing. Now she knows she's from somewhere else or something, and she knows she's different from other people, but she doesn't know. She doesn't know anything about Krypton, you know, any of that stuff. So now she's growing up very similar to Superman. And one of the comparisons I think that's even made in the book, or people talking about the book, is it's a lot like that popular pre-Superman show they did years ago called Smallville. It has a lot of that, and maybe some Friday Night Lights elements to it and stuff too. So, and it's fine. It's very teen drama for the first 3 issues, and she's got her close bond with her 2 best friends. One of them's gay, and one of them is a very serious athlete. And yeah, so it's just about her trying to, you know, the normal trials and tribulations of growing up as a teenager and stuff. But then, of course, the fact that she is very different and special and can do these amazing things and doesn't know how. Her parents kept her pod thing and also the blanket thing that has the same symbol that Superman has of the family. And yeah, so it's just sort of normal teenage drama for a lot of it, and about how she's very much a typical teenager getting along with her friends. Here's a nice shot of them celebrating her birthday together with some. Sorry, my camera's a little off skew. Like I said, this will get better over time. This is pretty rough. And anyway, and it's kind of like another thing that's kind of interesting is that another parallel is that I remember the Smallville show, he like landed at the same time as sort of what they said was like a meteor shower, which would have effects on the town for like years to come. In fact, during a lot of the early Smallville episodes, he was usually having to use his powers against somebody else that had gained some sort of powers from the meteor shower, which of course was full of debris and material and stuff from Krypton. What we have here is a different event. And then of course there's the thing with in one of the Superman movies where there's a tornado that I think actually kills his father and he hides his powers. In this, we're gonna have a track meet, spell down track meet, where of course she can't use her powers, she's just holding back. And an earthquake happens. And the funny thing about that is she's perfectly willing to use her powers and, even reveal herself, as we see, to save her friends. Something's about to fall on her friend, she uses her strength to save it. But then the other one, the athlete, falls. What's her name? Jen? Yeah, Jen. And this should be no sweat for Kara to haul her up. But she's having some sort of weird thing where she suddenly starts to glow and her powers kind of give out on her. And this leads to her dropping Jen, presumably to her death. And then so the rest of the rest of this arc is about sort of the town dealing with the tragedy and dealing with the loss. 4 local people, including Jen, had died, and of course she's really sad and upset and guilty. She doesn't understand she has all these great powers, and then the one time she really needs them, they crap out on her, and her friend dies and stuff. And spoilers ahead, it turns nobody understood where the earthquake happened. Well, the earthquake happened because there's actually some scientists going on that are aware of Kara and her powers, and they've been doing weird experiments and monitoring her. Here's another thing they introduced. Speaking of muddying the whole thing about Krypton is, so when she finally, she also has some of the first dreams, but of course they're memories of, her parents sending her off as Krypton's dying. So eventually she does find the source of these experiments. And the deep cover agent is actually her high school coach, the one that taught her track and field and stuff like that. The coach is actually one of the main scientists involved in this, and she was aware. So here they are finding sort of like a secret laboratory outside the town. And she finds out because of the experience that happened, it actually led to the earthquake. And of course, the other big reveal is that they have another Kryptonian who they captured. And he tells a story about how he was sent years ago as sort of like a scout and to maybe be an ambassador to talk to the people of Earth. Like he was on an official mission, and when the government captured him, he was just following the orders, which was not to fight back and allow himself to be captured, which of course he wound up really regretting because it turned out they found out very quickly how to neutralize his powers, and they kept him in captivity for years and did all sorts of horrible experiments to him and tortured him. And as we see, after she helps him get out, he's waiting for her to come back, and some guy comes up to just have a conversation with him, and he's talking about stargazing, and he says, "The stars are not for you, human." And the next panel, he reduces him to ash. Obviously, with his heat vision, we find out, his years in captivity has made him very vengeful, and you can sort of understand why. And so his idea is to get revenge on the whole human race and reduce the planet to ashes and stuff. So of course she's going to have to face off against him. So now things are muddy again. So here's another Kryptonian. Whatever. So anyway, I kind of glossed over the first 3 issues because I don't know how much to say about them, except that it's a lot of sort of teen drama stuff. Fairly good dialogue. Obviously Tamaki has worked in this sort of area before, giving some, it's a lot like hearing, kids on some sort of teen show, like maybe Buffy back in the day talk. They have their own sort of slang and stuff. And this is all very much in the present time, so everybody's using cell phones and stuff. Text messages are a big part of the plot. We see text between her and her other friends. I did have some thoughts about her relationships with her friends. I don't know how important they're to get into. The one I'll just say is that Jen was a very serious athlete, and of course in the wake of this, the one that lived now knows about her powers, and she's just sort of like, yeah, okay, that's cool, you've got powers, I like that a lot. I feel like Jen would really have resented her, given, imagine you were, a really serious student athlete, and you dreamed of being at the highest level. She talks about wanting to compete in the Olympics someday, and so, sometimes you see her, they're out with her friends, and they're eating junk, and she's eating the more healthy food and stuff, and yeah, you understand what it's like, even if you haven't done it yourself. The concept of dedicating yourself to be, a really good athlete. So you train really hard, you have a really strict diet, and all this stuff. And imagine you find out your friend is somebody that, without any effort at all, zero effort, can do a million times better than your absolute best, just because. She could do the 100-meter dash in less than a second. She could do her high jump would be hundreds of feet high in the air, and so on. So it's sort of for the best that maybe Jen never found out, because you get the feeling that Jen would probably grow to resent her. At least that's how I see it. I don't know how she could really feel any other way. I think all those times we trained together going around the track, you were holding back. You could have just blown by everybody and me without any trying, without any effort. Kryptonians on Earth have like a perfect metabolism. It doesn't matter what they eat, they won't get overweight or anything. Kara could, sit on a couch for 3 months just eating junk food, and then just go out to one of the competitions and win it like that. So I feel like Jen might have grown to resent her had she not died. And this doesn't clarify that she died for sure. She just fell into a really deep crevice and her body wasn't recovered. And in a lot of comic book conventions, that sometimes mean they did survive in some crazy way and they'll come back later. I don't really know if that's what they're going for in something like this. However, like I said, once you get to the final issue, things do get fairly comic booky. You get the stuff about Krypton, and she has to use her powers, and there's a tie to LexCorp. Of course, LexCorp is behind everything, so you do get to see Lex Luthor towards the very end. Here he is talking about the situation. There's Lex looking very serious in his car. And of course, what happens is, here's where the timeline is a little messed up. So they mention that Superman is on Earth, and he is active as Superman, but he's a fairly new phenomenon, so this is well before the timeline of this. Apparently Superman's around, and some people have seen him do stuff, but I guess there's no Justice League, Superman hasn't met Batman yet, etc., etc. And the very last page is her... Oh, by the way, the end is she decides to leave town to protect her family, her parents, and so she goes off on her own. And as we find out, she flies up to Superman with her... blanket to show him, and she says, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And that's how it ends. Which is kind of cool, and I don't know where they're going to go for it. There must have to be more to it, I guess. I don't know if this is a one-off or not. Like I said, I'm fairly sure there is a Supergirl book going on in continuity, so maybe this exists outside continuity. I really should have checked into that a little more thoroughly before this video, but I can't tell you just how much I just wanted to do a video and get something up there, and I had to fiddle around with a bunch of technical stuff and logistical stuff. It shouldn't be as hard as I made it, but anyway, so I'm just really glad. So this is not a great video. As you see, I got up a few times to stop my screensaver because I didn't even have the foresight to fix that, so in the future this will be a lot less sloppy. Give me some slack. It's been a long time since I've done this. It'll get better, and if anybody's watching at this point, I'm certainly very grateful, because the channel has been dormant a long time. So nothing too in-depth in there. I don't know really where I'll go from here, but I have acquired quite a few new comics and graphic novels and stuff over the years, of course. If anything, I only accelerated it and picked it up. So there's lots and lots of good stuff to draw from. And as I said, I hope to do in the future a video that just sort of goes around this room and shows off my bookcases and stuff, because I'm proud of them. And those videos actually do draw a lot of interest. My comic and graphic novel videos are the only ones that get like views in the thousands. Everything else is fairly low. God knows how low this one will be given my time off. But anyway, that's all I'll say for that one. I do have a little bit of buyer's remorse. Part of it was because I had been out of town for a while, and when I'm away from my books, I feel cut off and I feel the need to buy new ones. And this is kind of what happened here. I wasn't at home, I was somewhere else, and I was in a bookstore, and I was drawn to this, so I bought it. I also did that with a few volumes of Hawkeye from I think 2014, 2015, that maybe we'll talk about, because I broke one of my rules, which is I really try not to buy thin paperback trades. They don't seem worth it. But anyway, I can blab about that another day. So Supergirl being super, for the seasoned comic book reader, particularly somebody that has a lot of DC material and knowledge of the DCU. I don't think it's really much of a must-have or anything. But again, it is a good jumping-on point. It is good for new readers. Although I feel like in the last 10, 15 years, that's almost like the main thing so many comics are about now. It's always about jumping on, holding people's hands, giving jumping-on points and starting points and entry points to new readers. I get it. You always want to have new readers, but the old readers want to be catered to sometimes too. And I'm not saying we're not being. I just mean, I don't know. Like the whole idea of Ultimate Marvel, which is over now. Ultimate Marvel, the whole idea was to introduce a completely new continuity so that it could be a new jumping on point for new readers, blah, blah, blah. And that's fine, but again, as it lasted well over 10 years, I think almost 15, it just became its own thing, a snowball rolling down a hill, and, by the time you're that far into it, it wasn't, still not as big and complex as the original Marvel U, but still very big and complex. And it just sort of shows the cyclical nature of some of these things, especially something like Crisis on Infinite Earths, which has only led to, another crisis every 4 or 5 years where they try to not only have a big event, but also try to clean up some continuity and stuff, and they'll retcon this and retcon that. And it's not like they didn't know that was going to happen. That's where the whole idea for the never published and never really, I don't think ever really fully written Twilight of the Superheroes by Alan Moore came from, because he kind of foresaw the problem. So he wanted to write a story that had like a real ending. And years later we did get Kingdom Come, which was kind of a similar idea. I'm not a fan of Kingdom Come, by the way. It's one I actually bought and then traded because I was so disappointed with it. But that was a long time ago. Maybe I'd see it differently now, because Kingdom Come is always a really big one that's mentioned along the greats when you're talking about some of the great graphic novels or big superhero moments. And as I've said before on the channel, I'm not going to just I try to do different stuff besides Marvel and DC superheroes and stuff like that. Before I wrap up, I'll just say, one of my main priorities the last few years is to try to get into more European comics. Not counting British comics. I feel like British comics became so intermingled with North American that there's almost no difference, really. So when I say European, I mean the continent. Because for years I wasn't reading or collecting any of that. The last few years I've gotten some really cool stuff, probably starting with the French artist, Mobius, Jean Giraud, as he's known, but also some other stuff too. Most notably maybe the Italian great Manara. I'd love to talk about that. Dark Horse has been releasing collections of his stuff, and they're really great, and I've been trying to get them as they come out, so that's definitely something for the future. But anyway, this has been not very good, and I've done a lot of rambling and not given a lot of great information, but it was just more important to me to finally get something going again and get this out there. So again, if you're watching, I really appreciate it, and especially for putting up with a video that's probably not up to my usual standards, but we will get there. So thanks a lot, guys. Excelsior, blah blah blah, whatever it is I used to say. Did I used to have a sign-off phrase? I don't know. It's been too long. But anyway, thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll have something up again really soon this time. I'm gonna finally get some continuity going here. Alright, peace, bye.